Hey, let's dive into something that I guarantee affects pretty much all of us. We're going to talk about the hidden cost of that quick check we all do 100 times a day. So let me just ask you this. Why is it that you can't seem to focus after a quick check of your email? You know the feeling, right? You're in the zone, you take one tiny peek at your inbox, and poof, the magic is gone. Why does that happen? Oh, yeah, we have all been there. You're working on something important, you glance at an email or your phone, and all of a sudden, trying to get back to what you were doing feels like you're fighting your way through this thick mental fog. It's so frustrating, and it turns out it's a very real thing happening in our brains. And that brings us to our first big idea here, what I'm going to call the quick check illusion. We tell ourselves it's harmless, just a second, but that's the illusion. It's not free. Our whole work culture seems to push this on us, right? We think being busy, being constantly connected and responsive means we're being productive. But it turns out that constant switching between tasks, yeah, it's not harmless at all. It comes with a pretty steep price. So what is this hidden cost I'm talking about? Well, it's time to meet the culprit, the real reason for all that mental fog. It actually has a name: attention residue. And listen, this isn't just some vague feeling we all have. A researcher, Professor Sophie LaCroix from the University of Minnesota, actually studied this exact thing and gave it a scientific name. And here it is. This is the core concept: attention residue. It means when you switch from doing task A to task B, a part of your brain doesn't make the jump with you. A residue of your attention gets left behind, still thinking about that first task. And here's where her research gets really fascinating. She found that because of that residue, your performance on the new task, task B, is automatically worse. And the thicker the residue, the worse you perform. But here's the real kicker. That residue is thickest when the first task is left unfinished. Think about it. That email you just read that you need to reply to, that's a massive unfinished loop in your head now. So this whole idea of attention residue fits perfectly inside a much bigger framework for how to think about work, which was popularized by Cal Newport. And it's basically a constant battle between two different modes: deep work and shallow work. First up, deep work. This is the good stuff. This is when you're in a state of pure distraction-free concentration. You're pushing your brain to its limits, creating real new value. This is the work that's hard to replicate and really moves the needle. And then you've got its opposite: shallow work. These are all those little logistical tasks that don't take a lot of brain power. Think sorting your inbox, scheduling stuff. They're often done while you're distracted. And guess what? This is the perfect breeding ground for attention residue. And when you put them side by side like this, the difference is just so clear, isn't it? Deep work is all about single tasking, high brain strain, and creating new value. It's a low residue zone. Shallow work? That's the land of multitasking, low strain, and it's just a high residue environment by its very nature. They're like oil and water. Okay, so what's the big deal? What's the real, tangible cost of living in that shallow, high residue state all the time? Well, let's get into it, because the cost of all this switching is probably way higher than you think. The journalist Nicholas Carr put this feeling into words so perfectly. He wrote that the internet feels like it's chipping away my capacity for concentration. It's not just a temporary problem. It feels like a slow erosion of a skill that's absolutely critical. And if you want to know how big this problem is, get this. A McKinsey study a few years back found that the average knowledge worker spends 60% of their work week just on electronic communication and searching the internet. 60%. That's more than half your week spent doing the shallow stuff. So here's the bottom line. Living in this state of constant semi-distraction is just devastating to your performance. Every single quick check leaves an open loop, an unresolved task in your brain. It creates that attention residue that just chips away at your ability to think clearly and do your best work. All right, so that's the problem. It's a big one. The obvious next question is, what in the world are we supposed to do about it? Well, that brings us to our final section: how to actually manage the residue. And look, the solution isn't about finding a new productivity hack or downloading another app. It's about fundamentally changing the way you structure your work. It means you have to be intentional about minimizing context switching. You have to build a fortress around your focus. So let's just recap the big takeaways here. First, to do your best work, you need long, uninterrupted blocks of time. It's non-negotiable. Second, even the tiniest interruptions create that costly attention residue. Third, the whole point of practicing deep work is to design a system that minimizes this residue. And finally, and this is so important, your ability to concentrate is a skill. It's a muscle. You have to train it or it will get weaker. And I just want to leave you with this one final question to chew on. Seriously, take a moment and think about it. What could you really accomplish if your attention wasn't always being shattered into a million little pieces? What if it was whole? Now, all of these ideas we talked about today come from a truly fantastic book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. If any of this resonated with you, I can't recommend it enough. It's absolutely the place to start. Thanks so much for tuning in.